Hey, good morning, my neighbors. Welcome to another episode of BYTTT. Before you take the trade, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and the bell button. That way, the algorithm lets everybody know I bring you nothing but pure content. I had technical difficulties, so we got a lot of work to do. So let's go ahead and speed this right on up. So the first thing we're going to go ahead and look at is NQ did something very interesting. When we opened up on Tuesday, we kind of had a nice little dive towards the bottom here, and you can kind of see when we try to pop up, we got outside of a daily order block, right? But when we kind of came into this whole entire Asian session, when it was also it just really started to really push it down. So let me squeeze this chart over here. So here is our Tuesday coming from Monday, boom, and then we just kind of like really did that drop on Tuesday, and I think part of it was a lot of profit taking when it was all said and done. I probably was a little bit too bullish for the most part. See, I didn't really enjoy most of this drop because I thought, since we did this on the daily, that at best we were just going to go ahead and test this area, but we was going to close outside of this area. So I was looking for a nice little solid close, like above 23, 22, 27, something like that. So now I'm starting to feel a little bearish. Not saying completely bearish, but a little bearish, because then it tells me that this didn't really have that full control as they kind of stated throughout that day. And you can kind of see nice rejection areas all through here and through here. So even during the Asian session, we try to get up in here, and the first day they did, sell off. So I think there's a lot of bears that's trying to really push the market down. So be cautious when you get into your trades, and make sure that you see the trades as you design. Let's go ahead and check out oil. Right now, oil is trying to, that is not oil. Oil is trying to push to the upside. If we come over to the daily, you can see why. When we was trying to make this push to the downside, you can kind of see this tweezer bottom on top of an order block. I really was targeting around this 64. I thought we would get much like stronger bulls. So I think this is not going to last long. But look, at the end of the day, we're going to take the opportunities that's presented in front of us. I think we can get into this 200. That's going to put some real pressure, because you can see this order block is a toughie. So I don't know if it's going to really hold, trying to hold this up. But saying it's like this. We got one touch, we got two touch, we got multiple inside blocks. I call this jambalaya rice, where you get some green, some red, some tiny candles. You got massive push out just to come right back down. So it's almost like failure to launch. So we had a rocket that was trying to get into outer space, right? And when it got right around the clouds or the stratosphere, it just kind of turned right back down, and it's hit the ground. So I feel like this is just their second attempt to try to see if they can hold it. We might get a push up to here, and then it's going to get more of that wedging action. Don't forget, today is oil inventory. We'll break that down in the news. Here's gold. Gold is being really difficult. I thought by us getting really tight here, and we're getting tighter and tighter, now they're just making it even more tight. Look at that, like that. Oh my God, that is just, it doesn't get more annoying than that. So we're gonna really compress price coming into today. I'm gonna draw this line a little bit off this way so we can kind of widen it a little bit, but it's getting tight on it. And this is a daily chart, just to kind of let you understand. We're talking about a full day of 73 points, and then we got this one 46, 26, 32, just to get back down here. So the range is getting tighter and tighter and tighter. If you ever want to do this exercise, I do suggest that you go ahead and come on, get there, ATR, right? And put an average true range whenever you see something like that. That way you could kind of align. Look at this. 49 is the range. Now we drop it into we was up in the 50s, right? So now we dropped down 18 points today, and the range is about 49. So if they really want to try to be jerks about it, they could really test this fair value gap. I think we're gonna finally build. Maybe this is what they're doing. They're building to get out of here, but it's not looking good for them to already start this red, especially going into news. I wanted to see a nice little solid cushion to play this to the upside, but the biggest problem I would say is the action of yesterday. I was looking for the level of 34, 34.35 to hold, which would have been right around this area. And we're back in it during the London session because New York couldn't do it. London couldn't do it. Sydney tried to hold it up, but right now, it is not looking good for gold. Let's go check out silver to see if it tells us anything. Um, might be a prelude. Might be a prelude. The reason why I'm saying prelude is like silver is not showing the same weakness, right? Okay, let's come back to gold again, right? This is showing us that they're getting really tough to get into here, right? And if you remember how I explained silver, this is kind of like the warning shot, if anything. So I would say that silver is going to try to get inside of this area here. And when silver gets inside of that area, that's probably going to be the one that's going to give us that real push, because when we get above here, it's going to drag gold even more. But I think this push is going to give us the breakout, and I won't be surprised if silver actually taps this area. Let's check the weekly real quick. Let me see something. Tough, tough. Again, it's possible. It's very, very likely, but we got to look at the fact that the weekly really looks tough. This could be just a pure rejection at 38, coming back down, especially that we didn't really close with strength. So just keep that in mind. British pound doing exactly what I expected, which is that lightweight type of move, knowing that we just did a head and shoulder. This could be the retracement to get the rest of the measured move. So just keep that in mind when you're talking about British pound. And then you got Bitcoin. Fair value gap, now they're trying to use that as the order block. So they're trying to really build their position here. If we continue to wedge inside of here, that could be a good sign. Look for Bitcoin to be bullish above 115. And then back over to the Russell. The Russell has been doing this nice little break of trend. If you don't know much about bumper run, this was a perfect bumper run action. We had a massive drop off here, and then we kind of built the base. We fought with it, got through order blocks and everything else, used the order block as support, and that's the one that kind of propelled to this level. What day is this? This is Monday. If you played Monday right, you're talking about somewhere around the ballpark of here to maybe your 800 EMA, but the target is really this trend line. You would have to cross a few days to do that, and that's about 522 ticks. Great trade. And I got a good friend of mine that took this in pieces, of course, because we're futures traders, but you can see this bearish divergence that's happening on the 15-minute, which is going to be real tricky. So let's look at the daily. The daily looks like this. Good strong push, but it's not having any follow through as we are trying to get through this order block. So I think that Russell might be running out of steam, so we'll see what happens there. And then the last one is the infamous dollar. We haven't had a pure drop off the way we should be. Got a nice push, kind of waiting for that extension. 3 days of them trying to, and this fair value gap has yet to be tested. So I'm thinking that they're penetrating. If we could get today to close somewhere under $98, let's call it 98,575, we're going to get a nice little push to the downside, which will make the market rally. And as I go through some of these tickers, you're going to see why this is going to be very interesting. There's some liquidity in the market. All right, so go ahead, pull out a pen and a pad, because we're going to go ahead and give you the news, and it is coming in very hot. And the first thing we want to break down is our economic calendar. If we look at the economic calendar, you can kind of see we got mortgage rate that's coming in. We got the purchases and applications and refinance, that we can get a gauge on how the economy is moving. I think this is going to be interesting, because I think this is still going to be lower as the banks kind of squeeze to try to drive up demand. But by them trying to drive up demand, it might be bullish for the dollar, which is going to make the market pull back a little bit more. So that's going to be very interesting. Oil inventory, this is what I was talking about. We're really worried about the stock change. We're going to see what happens there. 17-week bill auction, 10-year bill bond auction. So these two are the ones that's going to be key and critical. If you don't understand what I mean by that, let me break this down from a 15-minute chart on the dollar. Yesterday we had some bond auctions to look out for. So if we go over to yesterday, right, and give y'all some of that. So we have 52-week at 11:30. So let's go over to 11:30, and you can see right around here we built that base. As you see the 15, we got lower interest rates, but the market reaction was like, I don't know. And then right here we got lower interest rates too. So now this can really, this was at 1 o'clock. Let's get to 1 o'clock. Where are you, 1 o'clock? This was roughly around here. So very little movement, very little action as people are considering getting out of equities and getting into these bonds. The interest rates aren't more attractive because the previous auction that they had last month was X and Y. And this is not what you want to look for. You want something that's a little bit much more higher to make me want to park my money over there. They may think that they could get more than 3% out of the market, or 3.6 out of the market, than for them to keep lowering interest rate. So since we have that action and coming into today, it's going to be, actually, let me just reset this real quick because it's only yesterday. All right. So as we come into this week, get out of my way, we're probably, this day, we're probably going to be dealing with 17-week bill auction here, 10-week. If these numbers are low, then that means we're probably not putting a lot into the bond auctions. That's going to be where you're going to get a lot of interesting action. Again, multiple ways of looking at this, right? The bonds are lowering their interest rate because the demand that they're expecting is supposed to be relatively high, so they're not too sure if they want to go ahead and attract more people. So right now the bond is in a very weird space. If you never charted the bonds, it's ZB on the futures, and you can kind of see right here we kind of been in a little bit of stagnation here. We've been in this lower register. There is no increase in the bonds here. So by seeing something like that, I think it's going to be lower again. Actually, I got to adjust this line because we're still making lower lows right here. We're starting to try to break through. Actually, no, wrong one. Adjust this line to, that's going to go through. Okay, so actually, okay. I think what we're doing, we're consolidating. I'm gonna have to come over to the weekly to point this out. We're not making any more lower lows, but we've been making some strides to the upside. Bond interest rate is attempting to push right back up. They're struggling to do so. So I want to see what they're going to do with this base. Let me see if I can find an order block here. Yeah, I think the order block is, we're literally fighting inside of an order block here, based on the monthly. So I would say they're attempting to increase rates, and that's the only thing that's going to attract investors into the bond market, is if this is going to hold. Right now, the interest rates could go even lower, and people don't want to see that. All right, that was a very long explanation of that. I apologize. Let's go ahead and keep this pushing. We got Fed Cook that's going to also speak. So just keep those things in mind. I'm not going to break down the next day. We'll cover actually, we should. So for tomorrow, especially in the euro, we got unemployment rate over in like Germany. We got ourselves a couple of CPI expectation over the British area. This is also going to, their interest rates going to affect the British pound, so we're going to have that. Jobless claims is going to be coming. Used car inventory. This tells us about the supply and demand. Consumer inflation expectation. Feds are going to be running their mouths. We're going to have some bond. This is the bond auction I'm really curious about with the Fed balance sheet to let us know what they're doing over there. All right, so let's go ahead. I got only one article So I kind of squeezed in yesterday in the mix. I mean, tomorrow in the mix of this. This is something we're probably going to talk in nauseum about. AMD disappointed me. You can see right here, they already put that it is down $12. You can't make these problems. You want to go ahead and challenge Nvidia. Nvidia doesn't drop $12 during their earnings cycle. You cannot have that. So let's go pull up the chart and look at it right quick. So I think the reason why AMD is pulling back is because we did have a major push up into that upside for that all-time high. They're afraid of holding on to it. I think they were waiting for like a super smash. They're just in line. And I don't think they said anything negative on the guidance, but I think what they're more concerned about, can this really hold? So I think people are going to reposition themselves. I don't think we're going to fill any monthly fair value gaps. I think this is still going to be bullish for the most part. Look at this year. They really pushed it down, and we came down to this area, and I feel like this is our block on the yearly. I really like AMD where it is, and I will not be surprised that people try to pick it up off the ground. Look for a area somewhere around here, around that 156, 149, psychological 150. Those are the places that they're probably going to pick it up from and continue to the upside. The tricky part about it, again, is the market's reaction to those levels. I think that a lot of people are in based on the parameter of this vertical movement coming off of April, and I get it. You want to lock in some profits. Now, what we want to see is something along the lines of that to a pullback, maybe even pull back a little deeper, but I don't want to see it pull back too deep. Nothing like that. The reason why I don't want to see anything like that, if I go ahead and do this, that's getting into that 50% area. And actually, let me do it even more justice. And then that'll be tempting for them to get into that 116. This can scare investors. Investors might step in here. Investors will probably step in here. They're going to try to catch this and try to get it back above the order block. But this whole entire leg, I think this pullback is the prelude to the complete and utter retracement, not reversal, but retracement, so that way we can go ahead and get some higher prices. Maybe a really, really solid Santa rally, because we do need to reset some oscillators. Look at that oscillator. That thing looks crazy, especially when the histogram is not following. So I think that's part of the reason. So we'll see what happens there and leave it as such. And shout out the rest of the semiconductors. SMCI, they kind of went light on theirs. Like 7, again, this is just market reaction. 7% miss is not something you want to go ahead and complain and drop a ticker. What's that? 15, 20%. Let me see what that number is. There's 16% down. That's not what you want to do, right? What's another one? MU. I was thinking it was going to be coming down anyways, so I think this was relatively solid for them to pull back. I think this is already priced in. I think this is the true move for a lot of these tickers coming off of April. So I'm looking at this 382 as a whole. Nvidia, after dropping like this, again, they got to give their earnings. They haven't dropped that far. It's only $3. So I don't think people are getting out of the semiconductor space. I just think they reacted to AMD to get some better prices, and this thing is going to push back up. Do not fret. Do not panic. Just follow the trading plan. Don't trade your money. Trade your plan, and this is what the plan looks like. All right. So let's go ahead and get into what's coming up today. Like I said, this is where I'm probably going to be speaking a lot on earnings. We do have a couple of things I want to cover. Today we got Planet Fitness is going to have their earnings. They're anticipating 79 cents with 329 in revenue. They had missed slightly, but they should get a good solid set of revenue coming in, especially with the summer. We'll see how that goes. everybody tried to get that summer bod in the middle of March, and this is reporting as of June. Keep that in mind. All right, so that's going to be interesting. What I want to see out of Planet Fitness is them giving a little bit more of a pullback. It's up pre-market, but this stochastic is tired, and the MACD is a little tired too. But we could get a nice little curl up on the MACD, and I think that will be the one that drives us up. Shopify, I kind of talked in detail yesterday about this one. Their earnings was on its way. It finally held a level. I was close on taking, because I wanted to take Shopify from Monday, but they kind of rejected the level. I did not get in. I am a little upset about that because it is up 30 cents. I might consider taking it anyways. I think Shopify might be the rebalancing of what AMD has done to tech. So we'll see what happens there. It's been quiet. It's kind of like just slowly going up in like a channel. Disney, I am looking for that high up here. I think this pullback is solid. I think this is a preparation for their earnings. If you do not know, if you do not have ESPN has signed a very lucrative deal with the NFL that they are going to be in control of a lot of the NFL's assets, all the way down to the production of NFL Network. So that's going to be better shows. Think of it like if there was ESPN, the original, then there was ESPN News, and they had all these segments, and then now they have ESPN2, ESPN3. This might be ESPN NFL. And if you're like doubting what I'm saying, a lot of the action that you're seeing on this reprise of Disney is based on some of the college football subscriptions that's going in for their ESPN college football, which follows the SEC and some of the bigger conferences. Just keep this in mind. I'm not saying pile into the ticker, but it is a good sign when they're getting that, and that could be the catalyst that gets us into that 136. I am very stoked about it, and I'm just waiting for the price action to follow suit. So just keep that in mind as we go into this earnings. And then we got Dash. Dash has been on a vertical climb as well. I like what they're doing. No real orders today, but I would say this thing is making some very interesting moves. It is at all-time highs again, and this thing is not playing with anyone. So I want to see what this does with the all-time highs. Is the earnings going to be light? I think it might be. I do think so. That will be the catalyst to kind of bring us down, bring us back to earth a little bit, but I would say it will just be a pullback for them to continue because this is the first spike of new highs after they double top during the pandemic times, and this thing is about to go ahead and do some damage over there. If you don't know, market share for all deliveries is really DoorDash, not Uber. That said, we got Uber right after, and this one is going to be interesting for if their deliveries does have some impact in taking some market share, then you probably get asked the right questions on DoorDash. Is it going to make any more highs? So I think that's why I like that I put both of these together, is because we can look at them kind of like side by side. Granted, Uber is really in the vehicle space and transportation more than they are in the delivery. Is just another segment as they try to diversify what their drivers do. So very interesting tickers that we have this morning. Tomorrow in the morning we got Lilly, and Lilly has been stagnant, and I've been talking about Lilly for a long period of time, especially going into this earnings cycle. I'm not confident on Lilly. I do think that there's going to be a bit of a pull down. I don't think it's going to be anything relatively drastic because this thing has been on a tear, but this whole entire consolidation, I think this is profit taking from people that's been out in these levels over here. I think it's also the fact of new competition into their, because a lot of this is driven by the diabetic medicine with Ozempic. If you think about the first commercial for Ozempic, Mounjaro, or whatever their name is, I can't remember which is which, but that was roughly during the pandemic, and they were only talking about diabetes. Back in 2023, pushing into 2024, people, there was rumors that they're using it for weight loss because you can lose a little weight. They even said it during the commercials a lot, and I think they brainwashed a lot of people to think that that's okay. Unfortunately, there are some cases of people passing, which we found recently, over the drug because they're probably overdoing it. Too much of a good thing is bad for you. So I think this is going to dry up revenue, add the competition. I think there is a lot of headwinds that's going to slow this thing down. Crocs. This one I want to see probably fall. I'm not gonna lie, but it's been sitting on top of this order block that refuses to break. So look for Crocs to probably give us a bounce. I'm thinking this thing can really rock it off because we made higher lows here, and they really are testing some of the levels when we made this massive drop off from the last earnings, and they did 20%. So if this is in line, or maybe they get into that 1 billion mark, which has been a little bit, right, since they did it last time, and maybe they fix the problems to start bringing in 1 billion. I find their shoes completely putrid and ugly. I don't know how people buy these things, but people say they're comfortable. I don't own no Crocs. All right, in the nighttime tomorrow, we have Gilead. Oop, wrong GL. It's GILD. This is in the science space, in the healthcare space. They make some of the pills that you probably don't even know that they make, but this is going to be interesting as the whole entire sector rotation could happen on strong earnings. I'm looking at XLV as that space because Johnson & Johnson has done something very massive on its own. So I want to see what's going to happen here. The chart looks like it wants to be up, but it does look like a rising wedge a little bit with a little bit of bullish divergences happening on just this price action here, not counting this one. And it's not looking relatively good for more upside. But if the earnings is solid, maybe this is just accumulation as they just boom push it right on up. All right, we got Gilead, we got XYZ, that is Block, aka Cash App, aka Square. I think they're a solid company. I think they got a little bit of a bad rep. You got to just give money to shareholders. You can't shortchange folks. That's where it boils down to at Square. And to be honest, I get it. It's probably their fees and everything else. As more competition is coming into that Square space, I think they do a lot of good things for small businesses. If their banking and loan revenue side is showing promise, I think that's what you need to focus on and not focus on the fact of credit card fees. If that can just be ignored for a little bit, I think one will go with the other as more people go into the banking space with them. You know, their loans and all that stuff that they offer on that side. Even Cash App extends payday advances to a certain degree. So very interesting what I want to hear out of these earnings on Cash App and Square. All right, so let's keep this going. We got TW. Okay, I'm only doing this because I'm a fan. I apologize for those. If you're not a gamer, you won't know who this is. And I just want to let gamers know, just in case they are into the stock market, you can invest in this stuff. September is when they drop their most massive item in itself, which is their new session of 2K. And that's going to drop. I want to see what they got on the pre-orders. They're probably going to go ahead and talk a little bit light on it. But pre-orders started in the middle of July, end of June. And you could kind of see they slightly missed here. They're a $1 billion company. Revenues might drop off because they don't have any massive product that is going to be coming in through their entire pipeline, because they already did the, I think, Red Redemption. That was a couple years ago. I think a lot of people are waiting for Grand Theft Auto to actually come out. So I think this is probably why the EPS could be lower. But we could get a nice surprise if the 2K sales pre-orders are solid during the month of May and June. So we'll see how that rolls out. And then the last one is Live Nation. Now Live Nation, I really think that at this point is better than your Ticketmaster and everything else, especially the articles that I've read for this for years, how Ticketmaster has complete control in a lot of space, almost borderline monopoly. and Live Nation is starting to take a nice little stab at some of those areas. And the artists are starting to prefer Live Nation versus Ticketmaster because they feel like they get more of the lead sales. So I want to see what they have to say about that. They're a $6 billion company. They were around $3 billion here, but of course you already know everybody really kind of goes to concerts and everything during the summer. If you don't know what I mean, let's go ahead and kind of recap. This is September. Then you got over here $6 billion here, and then you got March. Right, this is when this kind of happens. It's $3 billion, which is line to year over year. Of course, the holidays. You're more worried about the holidays instead of spending all money on concert. So it's always the summer. Okay, albums release somewhere around the ballpark of spring, so it can create the hype. So that when people get out of school by the summer, they can go to the concerts. That's kind of like the trend. If you don't follow Live Nation, just keep that in mind when you're dealing with tickets, especially when it comes out of concerts. And I think that's what we're going to be getting over here. I think people are stepping in, knowing that that pullback was coming into play, and this is a solid move. I won't be surprised that they surprise with a $7 billion, and that because inflation is high. I would be worried about the EPS, especially with people are complaining about tariffs. You might tighten the budget here just that way because this is more in the luxury and discretional, and then they're going to go ahead and worry about the staples. That's how I kind of see it. So look for Live Nation to attempt to try to see if they can make new highs, and if that EPS is bad, you might get yourself a nice little trending down to find an average price. I would say probably around 130, 132, maybe even 128, somewhere around there is where we're going to be testing. All right, to kind of give a little recap, Hood has been a really bright spot overall in the market quietly. Good friend of mine told me about it months ago, didn't take it serious, and you can see this thing has taken off. Look for Hood to give a little bit more of a pullback. That MACD needs to really calm down so that we can get some more investors in and see how healthy this trend is. Reddit, they had a massive drop off over here, especially during the March thing, and it's just been trekking slowly back up. They've corrected. Oh wow, I didn't even notice that. 136%. Wowzers. They have corrected a lot of. Oof. Jeez. I did not notice that. 130. Or maybe I didn't. I probably went over the earnings and it just really didn't stick. 136%. Somebody says, hey, I was going to go ahead and give you $19, right? And I'll see you somewhere in June. Hey, the $19 that you borrowed, oh man, you know what? Not only did I made $7,000 off of it, I'm going to go ahead and give you double that because, if it wasn't for you giving me this, I would have never made the night. So I'm going to be your best friend and just tell you I appreciate you. You think I want to loan you more? Guess what? They buy more shares. That's how it works. That's how it works. Find me more money, return it back to me in valuation, and do it with lower revenue. I'm like, damn, you're just giving me extra money and you're not even making money? All right, cool. I guess you look it out. That means you're doing better. But if you do it while finding more money, then it just tells me that you're doing things well. I want in. So that's what Reddit looks like. First Solar, it's an old ticker. Back in the pandemic days, this thing was like one of those things that everybody kind of like really piled in. So during the pandemic, rise. And then when we got up into around 2024, this is one that they took a lot of valuation out of the market. It never recovered. It got old drawings here, and it's just never really done well. Right now, they probably turning a corner because now this is looking good with the 1 billion. They haven't been losing money. So maybe the CFO has fixed how he can actually report their projection and stay in line. But this is one I would say keep in your radar. Another old name is Roku. I'm very curious on them, trying to see what they're going to do. Again, their ad space is where they try to, make their plugs in. Made some bad acquisitions, hence the reason why they have dropped off of a cliff ever since their pandemic side. When people were just buying content for everything, they got Tubi, which was a free one, so they could be able to sell more ad space, and that didn't really age well. So this is probably why they're at that bottom. Maybe they figured it out. Let's see what happens there. And then Rocket, if you don't know who they are, Rocket Mortgage, all that stuff. This is Rocket Companies now. The financing, rental, leasing, all of this is in that space. So just keep that in play. A nice solid W. I think we got a nice little push here, and I want to see if this thing can actually hold up and then take off for new highs. We got a golden cross that's happening on the daily. That's the reason why I'm so interested about it. I think we might get ourselves a nice solid push to the upside. Do I have this on my watch list? There's gotta be a reason why I don't have it on my watch list. Ah, that's why. Okay. So I've been very picky lately on adding to my watch list. It did find 41 cents. 41% more, but they're only a 2-cent EPS with 1.3 billion, which is not a really good thing. I believe they had cut dividends. I gotta double check that just to be on the safe side. But generally speaking, I am not a fan of tickers that are way too low, right there, and you can't find me money. Feels like you're gonna be in the OTC very soon. All right, I think I covered everything that I wanted to cover. I want to say thank you very much for being part of the BYTTT team and getting your information super early in the morning. By all means, just go ahead and hit the like, subscribe, and the bell button. Thank you for everybody that participated on helping me get to my subscriber base. I just needed another 160 or so. That way I can go ahead and clear one of those tiers. Share it to your friends and family. That way they can go ahead and do the same. With that said, don't forget, links down below. If you want to be a funded trader, they got an 80% promo that's going on right now over at Elite. Go ahead and click that link, and then we could go ahead and work on that. If you have problems getting yourself funded, my one-on-ones will be reopening somewhere in the middle of August. So just keep the link available and then book your one-on-one when the dates come around. All right, so that said, thank you. See y'all tomorrow. Have a great day.